I've told guys before, like the problem with just podcasting a pastor's sermons is you're only seeing one aspect of his ministry. It would be really cool if you could watch him in the foyer, or you could see him interact with the children, or you could see him visit the hospital. Like there's so many ministry work is people work. So I've been really moved. We did it in reverse. We studied Second Corinthians a couple years ago, and now we're doing First Corinthians. We didn't do first and then second. But I've been moved in both letters at just how Paul interacts with these cantankerous Corinthians. I mean, he's like herding cats, and there are so many issues going on. At the end of one of his chapters, I think it's chapter 11, he says, about the other matters, we'll talk about when I show up. And you just wonder about what else was going on in this church. And yet, even though Paul does, he provides correctives and rebukes, and throughout the letter, he also says things like at the end of Second Corinthians, "I will most gladly be spent for your souls." So I would just say to a pastor, I would just immerse myself in Paul's letter to the Corinthians. I think it's Dane Ortland in his commentary on Second Corinthians said that we could call Second Corinthians a pastoral epistle, even though we don't categorize it as that, because Paul there is being very vulnerable, and he's talking about his relationship with these Corinthians, and just I've been ministered to just with that theme of strength through weakness, and part of the weakness that Paul is dealing with is not just the thorn in his flesh, whatever that is, but he's dealt with difficult people, and just to see how he communicates to them really does speak to me. He could write about the Philippians, like "You're my joy and my crown," but to the Corinthians, he's got quite a handful there. So that's been very, very meaningful for me, and to just trust the Lord's sovereignty in that the Lord has put people in our lives for different reasons, and if we're going to do ministry, we are going to deal with difficult people, and we're going to be difficult at times ourselves. So I would encourage them in those ways. Yeah, so I became a Christian in college. I was a baseball player. Had several teammates that were huge influences on my life. Began to follow Jesus, got in multiple Bible studies, very involved in campus ministry. And then my junior year, a seminary professor named Jim Shaddix came and preached for 3 consecutive days at our school. And that was the first time I'd sat under expository preaching. And I just said, I want to do that the rest of my life. There was just a fire in my bones. I met with him. We talked all week long. I ended up graduating and then moving to New Orleans to study with him. I knew I wanted to be in ministry, having after that experience with Jim, just speaking, sharing my testimony in various places, serving at a youth camp or over the next summer, and just felt like, wow, man, this is what I want to do. I felt the aspiration to do it, and then I had others that were given the confirmation that I should move in that direction. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I went to seminary, and it wasn't until my second semester that the Lord really clarified that call to pastoral ministry. And it was a strange set of circumstances. It was the combination of a church administration class and reading a Charles Spurgeon biography. And the church administration class just gave me a real practical sense of what is involved in a church. And I even started thinking about church planting even then. What would it look like if I started from scratch? As we were talking about everything from deacons to parking lots to child care policies. And then so that class, coupled with sort of the romantic vision of the church that Spurgeon was giving me in Dallamore's biography on Spurgeon, was a real pivotal semester where I said, I want to be a pastor. I would miss most having a front row seat on seeing lives changed by the gospel. That's just what I get to see. We get to see a lot of hard things, but we see a lot of hard things. But getting to see lives changed by the gospel, a front row seat to that, to see someone come to faith in Christ. I met so many new people yesterday at church, and to see some of them for the first time, began to put the pieces together on how the Bible is a unified story, story after story like that. Uh, I wouldn't be part of those conversations if I weren't a pastor. I would really miss sermon prep and preaching. Um, it's not the actual deliver. I do love that too, but it's the process. It's immersing myself in a passage. And I love the experience of starting on Monday or whenever you start, and you're looking at a passage and you think, what am I going to do with this? And then by Sunday morning, you're like, this is the most important sermon I've ever preached. And so that experience is amazing. Just I would admit, if I were just traveling and preaching, I think I would rely upon a lot of old sermons, and that's fine. But I love being able to work book by book through books of the Bible. It's such an edifying experience, and to see other people learn how to study their Bible as they observe how I do exposition. That's just super exciting. I would miss the pastoral prayer time at our church. That's a time that has really grown to be one of my favorite things about pastoring. Of taking, leading the people in prayer together for the various needs in our church. Um, I think the older I get, the more wounds I absorb, the more sorrow I go through, the more difficulty I experience. It helps me to identify with people who are in the same boat, and it's shaped my prayers. And I think um, a lot of people at our church would talk about that component in corporate worship being really meaningful to them, and it's meaningful to me. It's something that I prepare for. It's something that I take our elder prayer time into account. I'll begin to hear what's going on in the body and really try to pray. So I would miss that immensely. Yeah, the most important thing I about being a pastor that I did not learn in seminary would probably be, and this is not the seminary's fault. It's just people skills and the need for personal affection and warmth, and uh, the seminary focuses on doctrinal precision, and I think that's what they should be doing. But there's more to pastoring than doctrinal precision. There's also the need for personal affection. There's the need to handle conflict, respond well to criticism, uh, welcome people warmly to your congregation. I've told guys before, like the problem with just podcasting a pastor's sermons is you're only seeing one aspect of his ministry. It would be really cool if you could watch him in the foyer, or you could see him interact with the children, or you could see him visit the hospital. Like there's so many ministry work is people work, and you can't really teach that stuff. You can emphasize it, I guess, in seminary, but you need to kind of be out and about to get that field experience, if you will. And I've just seen guys, unfortunately, that are really good with doctrine, but they're not good with people, and they don't make good pastors. And I remember, again, to quote Spurgeon, he has a paragraph in one of his lectures where he says, "I want a pastor whose face says welcome, not beware of dog." And he goes on to describe the individual that has this big heart, and that a man must have a big heart if he's to have a big congregation. So I just think the need to emphasize life on life relationships, how to handle people, how to love people, and then I think also like pastors need friends. That's another aspect of relational ministry. Is that this is a hard journey, but we don't have to walk it alone. I think it was J.C. Ryle that said, "Friendships halves our sorrows and doubles our joys." And I've experienced that. That it is the relationships I've been able to build with friends, most of whom are pastors, really has helped me to deal with my own sorrow, and has also multiplied my joy.